51 years after police rounded up Algerians in Paris who were demonstrating for independence. It was the height of the Algerian War of Independence. There were scores of them thrown into the River Seine. We're talking about it. With us is journalist and author Stephen Clark, Nadir Dendoun, journalist and author of Open Letter to an Immigrant's Son. Also with us, Richard Wagman of the collective of groups who tried to keep that memory alive of what happened on October the 17th, 1961. And Olivier Lambert, the maker of a web documentary on this very topic, The Forgotten Night, October 17, 1961. Now, you heard in part one, the far-right leader deny it happened. And even though the exact numbers of those killed remains the subject of discussion, there's no denying the facts of eyewitnesses like Aisha Mansouri, who spoke to reporters, the France 24 investigative news magazine.
On a reçu un mot d'ordre. On nous a dit de sortir le 17 octobre 61 pour manifester. Avant d'arriver donc au pont de Neuilly, on marchait dans la rue, on marchait, on était serrés, on était les uns contre les autres. On a avancé dans cette foule et à la force d'avancer, on entendait crier, on entendait hurler, les gens qui commençaient là à revenir. On a vu des gens qui saignaient de la tête, on a vu des gens qui étaient plus chaussés. Puis les gens, quand ils se sauvent comme ça, ils ne regardent pas si vous avez aussi des enfants. Hein. C'est chacun veut sauver, comme on dit, sa peau. Hein.
Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé ensuite?
Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé ensuite? On a continué. On a continué à se débrouiller, à passer par des rues où il y avait moins de personnes, en essayant de passer par des impasses, des petites ruelles, pour s'en sortir. On s'en est sorti comme ça, malheureusement.
Stephen Clark, you're the only person around this table I didn't ask. Did you know about October 17th, 1961?
I knew about the annual demonstrations at the bridge, and people have been thrown in the Seine there. And actually, during a Front National demonstration a few years ago, someone was actually thrown in again, wasn't it, one day? There was a demonstration when a man was killed during a demonstration by far-right demonstrators. But anyway, the thing that annoys me about these politicians saying, getting involved and saying, oh, it didn't happen or whatever, is that everything in France like this becomes a party political problem. Instead of just facing up to something and saying, yes, okay, we as a country accept this. Whatever happened, we now accept it. You always get the politicians trying to gain electoral points or something off things. And it just spoils all this sort of remembrance and facing up to their past, gets spoiled, becomes a party political debate.
One man who agrees with you is Bruno on Facebook. He says, I can only say it's a very noble and respectful decision on the part of the French president to acknowledge what happened. Certainly has not gone too far. Recognize the mistakes of the past as a characteristic of a solid democracy. ARPA says the question now is what next? Will it enter the elementary school curriculum as a mandatory subject of study? Do you see that happening?
I have some friends who are teachers, and I sometimes talk to them, and they are telling me that even if it's not in the book, they are trying to talk about it. Because now there are some places, we can call them ghettos. Where I live now, there are barely white people who live, to talk frankly. And there are some teachers who know that it's best to talk to them about their history, because the more you talk it, like you just said, the more the wound is going to heal. There are some people in France who think the more you hide things, the best thing goes. It's wrong. You have to put things on the table, speak it. There is nothing worse than frustration. There are lots of things that we talk about France, but when it's come to black people or when it's talk to Arab people, it's like what
But hold on a second, Nadir. When we were preparing this show, we were speaking with several people of Algerian descent like you in the newsroom. And they say, you know, in our families, we don't talk much about this period of history.
Yeah, because
either.
it's a bit of a shame. It's not a shame. It's called in French pudeur. I'm just not sure how we say it in English. You know, it's like we don't want, like my parents didn't want me to hate France. You know, so they didn't want me to talk about the past because it was a hidden past. You know, but sometimes I sat with my mom. I talked to her. I asked her what happened in her village when she was young, because my parents came to France in 1950s, and then my mom came in 1960s, and they talked to me about what happened when the French soldiers used to come in her village. And but thing has to be told, you know, like, because if you don't tell it now, we are going to, you know, give back and. First, there are some things has to say, and it's. I don't want the French people to take a weapon to, you know. No, it's not that. I want us to build together, you know, French people and
the interesting thing.
And Olivier Lambert, just to pick up on what they were saying. You know, Americans they make movies about Vietnam and everything. The French don't.
They make movies about Iraq.
Yeah. They make movies about Iraq. Yeah,
Iraq is just finished.
The French. The French people have the same problem. In your family, it's not something that was talked about much. You were saying before we went on there.
No, neither at school or in the family. Algerian War was one war among other wars in France. And in fact, I think the interesting point about that topic is that we're talking about what we think about this event in France, but it's interesting to ask Algerian people in Algeria what they think about the event. And do they talk about? I'm not sure. We tried last year to have links on the Algerian soil, on the Algerian country, just to promote our interactive documentary and to say, do you know that story? And most of the people were saying, no, we've never heard about it. And like you were saying, it's a part of our history. War was on both sides. Algerian war was also a French war. It was a war in Algeria, for sure, but also in France and in the streets of Paris, for example. So it's very difficult for two countries who were at war, who were trying to be the best, to many years after that to say, okay, yeah, we're fine to say this happened.
If I can add one, just a second.
Yeah.
France has waited 1999, I think, to talk about war. You know, they used to talk about events. You know, 50 years.
You were bemoaning before the break, Stephen Clark, the fact that politicians from the opposition are using this to play party politics. But there is a political context. The French president himself granted an interview to Jeune Afrique where he said that there will be gestures when he travels to Algiers for an important visit at the beginning of December, but there'll be no repentance. The President Bouteflika agrees with on this matter that it is not worth, as he puts it, let me just get my papers out here, right? It agrees on this matter that that'll be enough. So in other words, the French and the Algerians agreeing to maybe not go too far in terms of, as you were saying, whipping yourself.
All countries have to do that. They don't. I mean, people trade now who were at war a few years ago. You know, France and Germany are very close allies now. Who would have thought it, 50, 60 years ago? All the countries do that in order to trade. So you just hope that, you just would hope about such serious subjects as massacres and things like that the politicians would stop being politicians for a moment and just be human beings and just say, okay, this terrible thing happened. Maybe we ought, as you were saying, maybe we ought just to face up to it. We don't know exactly whose responsibility it is. We don't know exactly who did it, but it was a sort of national event. In all countries have them. In Britain, we have them as well. In Northern Ireland, there were some terrible things happened. And people tried to the British and the Irish are now talking because they had this big session where everyone just sat down and said, okay, perhaps we both ought to apologise for the bad things we did. And it ceased to be a political issue because all the political sides came together. And it just turned into a sort of human understanding issue, which was above and beyond politics. So I can understand, François Hollande wants to trade, have closer relationships to Algeria, so he's making a gesture. which all modern countries have to do. So you don't need to talk party politics about it.
You were mentioning before the break, Richard Wagman, about the fact that Jacques Chirac, the then French president, apologized. It was back in 1995. He apologized for the roundup of Jews at a Paris velodrome during the war. He acknowledged it. It was much more than an acknowledgement, in fact. Here's what he had to say.
Yes, the occupying forces and their criminal madness were assisted by French people. They were assisted by the French state. There is, and this is unquestionable, a collective responsibility.
But, and this harks back to what Stephen Clark was saying, for the former Prime Minister François Picard, who's currently running for his party's leadership, this acknowledgement, and it's not an apology what François Hollande put out, goes too far and comes at the wrong time.
I'm tired of this. Every couple of weeks, France finds a new way to take the responsibility, to take the guilt. The country is almost in a constant state of depression. We don't need this. It's for historians to discuss these things, not politicians. It's difficult enough.
Richard Wagman, what's your reaction to that statement?
If the former Prime Minister Fillon feels that it's not up to politicians to talk about it, he should stop talking about it. That's what I feel. I think it's more of a national shame for the French people as a whole that part of the political elite is still, playing hide and seek with history and pretending that what is now a solidly established historical fact never took place. This is petty politics, and it is not up to what would be expected of a civilized country.
What's going to be the upshot then? Is this going to, Nadir, you were saying, telling us how teachers are sort of teaching this on the sly in schools. Is that going to continue, or is the tide of things such that it is going to enter into the textbooks?
I think it's going to depend on who is going to win in 2017. Maybe we have Copé as a president and Marine Le Pen as a prime minister. Then will be hell for all of us, for you like for me. But I believe French people, like French white people, because I consider myself as a Frenchman too. So I think most of French people, the white and the French Arab and the French Arab, wants to work together. And I believe and I hope things are going to change slowly, because the new generation is not as dumb as the oldest. They are not like Fillon and all the stuff. They haven't lived the war or things like that, So I believe when I go to school, because I often go to school to talk about my books or to talk about things I do, I see France is changing. Face it, We are, as French as all the people, we are part of French history. My parents' past is part of the French history. Even if they don't talk in the books, we will talk it, because now we have big mouth. It's not like in the past we used to talk in the cave and we used to be ashamed of what we are. We are not ashamed. We are French. We are French Muslim. We are French. But we are French first,
And Olivier
we
Lambert,
are, like we said in French, we are décomplexé, We have no complex at all. We love France because we live in France, but no compromission at all.
Olivier Lambert, it's interesting. You made your documentary as a web documentary. Can you keep a secret about the past in the internet age?
No, I think, let's face it, with Facebook, Twitter, and the internet, it's like worldwide. So when we did the Forgotten Night as an interactive documentary on the French newspaper website Le Monde, everyone can see it. And it won't last 2 days, 2 years. No, it's there forever. So everyone can see it. And we wanted a place of memory which can be here forever. And the website offers that. So if tomorrow or tonight there is a demonstration in the streets of Paris, we'll know it very, very fastly. We know it on Twitter or Facebook, and we'll have picture, we'll have sounds, we'll have videos of the event. And the government, left-wing or right-wing, they won't and they couldn't, they can't stop us to do our job as journalists, reporters, or documentary filmmakers. So that's the good thing with the internet, I guess.
But Stephen Clark, do you see the narrative of a country being changed because of all this new technology?
Yeah, it's harder to hide things, which is a lot better, really. I mean, the narratives of countries changes a lot through history, and you also need to look back as well as, you know, keep your eye on the present as well, I think. Yeah, that's why I wrote 1,000 Years of Annoying the French, because I wanted to go back 1,000 years and sort of look at everything. I mean, your ancestors in Picardy probably suffered from British invasion of Calais. I mean, perhaps you ought to look into that as well. And, you know, once we've caught up with the past, and then we can face the present, then you hope that your country will stop doing, you know, unpleasant things, because you know they're going to get found out. As you were saying, these soldiers in Iraq now, or the soldiers who are in Iraq who are committing atrocities are now getting found out and tried very quickly. They can't get away with things anymore. And if people know that, then they're going to stop doing massacres like this, you know, 17th of October 1961.
And that's where we'll leave it for now. That web documentary, we'll be sure to put it up on our website later on. A final word from Nadir?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I wanted to say thank you to France 24, because in France 24, I can wear a T-shirt Palestine without any trouble. Because 3 weeks ago, I was in Canal Plus, in a French TV, you know, and during all the show, at the Grand Journal, you know, they filmed me just like that. Because they didn't want to show Palestine on French TV. It's like, you know, poison. It's like cancer, you know. So I wanted to say thank you to you.
Well,
I wanted to say that peace is coming when we can talk, even if we all agree about things, you know.
Exactly. Nadir Dendoun, I want to thank you. I want to thank Olivier Lambert. I also want to thank Richard Wagman and Stephen Clark. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.